Let's look at something called selector list, which means that let's say we have a multiple selectors. Then how do we have a single rule set for multiple selectors? So we can simply have this syntax that we can have multiple selectors separated by comma, which means that if we want to have span and this rule, div and this rule, then we can simply write span comma div and this rule. So this is going to have the same effect as I write separately the rule span separately color red and a separate rule div with color red. So we can use multiple selectors separated by comma, and this is called selector list. Now let's see something called descendant combinator. Descendant combinator is something called space, where if you write div space space span, let's say div space span, this will mean that span should be a descendant of div, and it should not be a direct descendant. It might not be a descendant, it can be, but it might not be a direct descendant. It can be a, like, let's say descendant of a descendant, so something like this. So let's say something like this. So this will also match and this will also match. So let's take an example here. So let's say I have something like div, let's say a div is there, and as mentioned here, let's say some span is there inside strong, and some, let's say this is hello 1, and again there is separate, let's say span here, something like span hello 2. Now if I do something like, you see here, if I do something like div space span, then it will match, it is, this span is also inside this div, which is this is a descendant of this div also, this is a descendant of this div also. So basically we can write something like this, div space span, and then if I write, let's say color red, then we are going to see something like this. You see, both are red. Why? Because earlier when no style was there, then you can see that this was a strong text with hello, and this was a normal text with hello 2, right? This was in a strong tag, but both of them have now become red, which means that this is targeting this span as well as this span. Okay, next is child combinator. Child combinator is, this means that direct child combinator, which means that if I do something like div arrow right arrow span, it will only target the direct descendant, which means that directly inside div, if span is there, directly inside div span is there, then only it will target. It will not target which is a descendant of a descendant, something like this. This will not target that. So let's check that. If I do div arrow span, then what will happen is that, see, it is only targeting hello 2, which is direct descendant, not hello 1, which is a descendant of a descendant. Okay, next there is general sibling combinator. This means that if we have something like div and then this tilde sign on the top left of your keyboard, tilde sign and span, this will mean that my span and div should be sibling, which means that all span which are sibling of some div, they will have the color red. You see, so let's have a div, and inside div let's have another div, let's say simple div, and inside that let's say have hello 1. Then what is going to happen, and let's convert this to this thing, right? Div tilde span. If I do this, then we will see that this div and this span, this div and this span, they are siblings, and that's why that hello 2 is selected. Okay, so now you see that when div tilde span you are writing, then it will target span which is a sibling of div, but the main point you have to remember is that this will only target when this thing is a sibling after the first element. So for example, let's say right now I can clearly see that this hello 2 is targeted, and even if you have something like, let's say some other tab with some anything, right, it will still target that thing, the next one, right? But if this thing is before this, let's say, then you see it is not targeted, which means that whether it is immediately before or let's say some something is there, right? In any case, it is not targeting. It will only target when whatever second element is there, that should be after this. So it can be immediately after, or it can be after a few more tags. In general, it is general sibling, but it cannot be before that. So that is the one thing you have to remember. So okay, so I believe then this span. Okay, so this thing is incorrect. Yeah, this thing is incorrect here. It should be definitely before that. So this will not target. This will not target. Only something which is after this, then this will only target. So this thing is wrong. Okay. Adjacent or following sibling. Now this means that here also we have to see that it should be following, but it should follow immediately, right? Immediately follow, not that later. So for example, here we saw that here, okay, span is after something, then also it is targeting, right? But if we convert this to plus, then we will see that now it is not targeting. However, if it is immediately after that div, then it will target. So that is and obviously it will not target before this. So that is adjacent sibling combinator. Next we will see pseudo classes, but we will see that in the next video.